Welcome back to Coral Castle TV. Today I'd like to do a bit of a two-parter. The first is the recognition of a fellow brother in truth and author of Coral Castle Mystery Solved and the Art of the Anunnaki. And this is the gentleman you see on the screen before you, Ital Iman. And he did a wonderful kind of a tribute video to me yesterday, and it was so moving and very humbling. And Brother Iman is what I would call an ascetic mystic. He speaks very mystically, and he has so much profound wisdom. I think that it's under-recognized, and that he certainly deserves more credit than he's been given in his fields of study. And he made the most wonderful video, and I encourage you to watch it. I'll show you the page here, and I'll include a link at the bottom for you to go over. I hope you subscribe to his page. He has a great manner. Wonderful speaker. He has the right voice for his type of wisdom, and I'd like you to check it out. And to give you an idea of just how prolific Ital Iman is, the Underground News Network Publications is a showcase or a book gallery housing the writings of Ital Iman, who is an international known folk artist and independent journalist. And Ital Iman was the only African American and independent journalist to cover the historic and tragic Beltway sniper trial of 2003. His coverage of the trial was picked up by the Washington Post lifestyle section. He's an avid permaculturist and foremost exponent of the Rastafari mysteries, producing and publishing over 500 videos on YouTube since 2007, and if memory serves, he's written about 13 books. Ital Iman is the founder of the Wonder Project, and he's also a member of the International Association of Independent Journalists. This is a man who knows how to do his homework, and it is so appreciated, and much respect to you, Brother Iman. He speaks very esoterically, but he is speaking science when he is talking. It's fascinating to listen to him say things in such a different way than I am used to. And I like the way he says them. However, the problem, I think, with Ital Iman is that he packs so much in. He'll casually mention something that will take me 15 minutes to explain to another person. I understand what he's talking about, but how many people really know? And I think that because of that, he is an underappreciated person in his fields of study. And I think he's just a cool guy, a nice guy, and very wise. And he really inspired this video today, and it was a phrase that he said about opening the Stargate. The Master Blaster was jamming, Ital Iman, because I got that. I received that message, and today we're going to be talking about opening that Stargate, and to do that, we are going to have to figure out where we went wrong in physics. And the truth is the work has already been done for us, because Ed Leedskalnin figured it out for us, and he left it behind. And my job and Ital Iman's job is to reinterpret what he found and bring it to the modern day, bring it into the light. To quote Brother Iman, each one teach one. We are torches, trying to light as many others as we can before our own flame goes out. Ed left an everlasting flame, and it has lit a fire with me, and it has lit Ital Iman, and it has lit other people, and we are burning to share it with you. So please join me as I show you how what we found, what Ed has found, goes back all the way to the Anunnaki, to the Dogon, to the Egyptians, to every single successful megalithic society that has come about, there was an origin, and the origin is the stars. And what Ed learned how to do, in a manner of speaking, was open a Stargate. Let's talk about it now. Newtonian Einsteinian physics versus Leedskalnin. Now, the entire subject of this talk is that you have to realize that in 1687, Isaac Newton invented gravity. He did not discover it. And that after he invented it, Albert Einstein adopted it. The goal of this video is to show you how that happened and how that it is a mistake. Not only is it a mistake, but it is a mistake which has been carried forward for generations and has mutated our way from true science into the flawed set of mixed bag of bad observations, bad explanations, and poor requirements of evidence, which take us away from the path of reality. And before I begin discussing that, I'd like to first set the boundaries that science is the correct observation, interpretation, and explanation of factual data in accordance with reality. Now, I don't want anyone think for a moment that I am bashing Sir Isaac Newton. I think that Newton was one of the most brilliant people who have ever lived on the planet Earth in its entire history. But see, we go back to science. It is not just about getting an observation. It is about the correct observation, interpretation, and explanation of factual data. The part that is so brilliant about Isaac Newton was his observation. While sitting in an apple orchard, I'm sure you know the story, he observes an apple fall out of a tree to the ground. This perplexes him because he sees the rest of the apples are in the tree. Why did this one behave differently than the rest? And he decided that there was a force that was acting upon this apple that he says was pulling the apple down toward the center of the earth. That was his observation. His observation of an apple falling to the earth, something that many people before him had seen, but they had not observed. His observation was brilliant. What he was able to determine was that wherever you are on the planet, when you drop something or something falls, it falls in a straight line toward the exact center of the planet. This observation, this single observation, is maybe the most important scientific observation ever made, and it was made in 1687 by a 22-year-old man. It is profound. However, it is from here that things begin to train wreck, and I'm about to show it to you now. It is from here that physics goes sideways, because his observation was profound, but his interpretation was completely wrong. And the reason was because of a lack of information for the time. You see, in 1687, they didn't know what was at the center of the planet. He said everything is being pulled toward the center of the planet. And what he didn't know was that at the center of the planet was a giant iron nickel magnet. You see, I bet if he had known that at the center of our planet was a giant magnet that created a magnetosphere around us, and that our planet had a north and south pole, and that we generate electricity from a spin, I believe, and in fact I can say with practical surety, that he would not have had to invent something to explain the effect that he so correctly observed. So, because he doesn't know what is at the center of the planet pulling things down toward it in a straight line, he has to explain this somehow. So, what he says is that there is a force, and this unseen force that acts all around us is something new called gravity. Now, this isn't the complete story, but he is mistaken about it being an attracting force. And he's also mistaken about what was pulling things toward the center of the planet. Now, physicists, this is where they, jump off a cliff because they say, well, that's not possible. But I'm going to explain to you again how it's not just possible, but most likely true. Where I begin to place blame is with Albert Einstein, because in 1908, when he published his paper on, was it 1908 or 1906, he published his paper on the general theory of relativity, which is based on Newtonian physics, which is based on the concept of gravity. He did not go back and check Newton's work, because when you read Newton saying that things are being pulled in a straight line down toward the center of the planet, you should think about what is at the center of the planet. And at the time, we knew that we had a magnetosphere. We knew that we generated a magnetic field, that we are, and this is where Leedskalnin physics comes in. He says the Earth itself is a great big magnet. That is something that Newton did not know, but that Einstein did. And he did not figure this magnetism into his calculations at all as it relates to gravity. He treats gravity as though it is a separate thing, that it is its own force, and that magnetism in no way plays a part. This is flawed, this is wrong. And so everything that he writes after this is absolutely bound to be incorrect. Now, for some of the smarter people, the troll in you may be dying to get to your keyboard and say, yes, but we can predict the curvature of space-time based on Einstein's equations of gravity. And yes, this is true. Newtonian equations also can predict the curvature of space-time using the gravitational equation. However, you can call ketchup fine Merlot, but that doesn't make it taste right. You can predict something without understanding how it works. I give you the example of the cuckoo clock. I can predict for you that an hour from now, a little bird is going to come out of the top of that clock, and it's going to sing to you. However, I do not know how that mechanism works exactly. I could not explain to you the mechanism for how the cuckoo clock works, but I can certainly predict its behavior without understanding any of the mechanics of it whatsoever. And this is where we find ourselves today. If you listen to the podcast where Joe Rogan and Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about gravity, Neil deGrasse Tyson loses his mind at Joe Rogan being scientific and saying, why does gravity work the way it does? And Neil deGrasse Tyson says if we can explain the how enough, that it is tantamount to explaining why. And this is an absolutely flawed, incorrect statement on the part of an astrophysicist trying to be defensive and play psychological mind hockey with you as it applies to answering the real questions behind physics. What Leedskalnin asserts is that we are a giant magnet, and we are. There's no doubt about that. And not only are we a giant magnet, but we are a giant magnet spinning while simultaneously hurtling through space at 69,000 miles an hour through the fabric of space-time. And we are doing it in unison with other magnets. The second flaw in Einstein's work is that his calculations count for he accounts for what he calls empty space. There is no such thing as empty space. It's like saying empty water. The presence of a thing precludes its emptiness, does it not? It's like saying empty water. Like that's not a thing. You see, because space, hold on to something, guys. Space is a form of matter. Space-time is matter. It is simply a form of matter that we have not been cognizant enough to really recognize, but all the signs are there. Space can be warped, can be twisted, can be bent, can curve. It is something that is also in motion. So therefore, it has all the hallmarks of matter. Therefore, space, weird as it may sound, space is a form of matter. So what Einstein missed and what Leeds-Skalnin realized is that we are a magnetic sphere spinning and also traveling in the fabric of space-time at a high rate of speed. And what we are doing, as we are a form of very dense magnetic matter with an extended magnetic field hurtling through the form of matter in the form of the fabric of space-time, that what we are doing is we are causing a disturbance as we move through it. This distortion, or this wake as we plummet through the fabric of space-time, causes the fabric of space-time to push back against that field. The magnetic field that is pushing out against it, the matter that is pushing out against space, space reacts by pushing in on it. This pushing down, this pushing in of space-time is the curvature of gravity. And this curvature of space-time, which we call gravity, is caused by magnetism and motion. We see this phenomenon in other instances as well, even down to something as simple as Bohr's model. It looks very similar to what you would see in a solar system, doesn't it? And it is because the mechanism, the physical properties and the laws which govern our universe work very much the same once you understand them and can recognize them for what they are. So one of the ways we can explain this and say it in a bit less scientific, more of a layman type of explanation, is to say a magnet is an attractant force. And as this attractant force of magnetism circulates through it, it also must come back out again. And this exiting of magnetism is a repelling force. It pushes out against the space around it. Now, as it pushes out against the space around it, space then equally and oppositely push back in around the source of this magnetism. And this balance is what we call gravity. The why is more important than the how. And so what we are mistakenly thinking of as gravity as a single standalone force is really the combination of magnetism pushing out against space-time and space-time pushing back in an equal and opposite manner. And this balance is what we call gravity, and we are not pulled down to the earth. We are pushed down onto it. My name is R.L. Poole, and I am the author of the #1 bestseller in the physics of gravity on Amazon last year, The Lead Scalding Codex, Breakthroughs in Understanding the Coral Castle. Please pick up the book, support this channel, and please, as always, stay tuned.
You are watching Coral Castle.